I'm Alex Rose with the Office of Arts and Culture. I'm leading a new division in our office focused on creative placemaking, and I have the pleasure of working with a team of consultants led by road openers, who you'll get to meet in just a second here. We are gathered here today to discuss the new Pivot program. It's a pilot program that is all about pathways to innovation, vitality, and organizational transformation. I'm going to keep letting folks in as we go. I don't know if Stacy or Priya, you have permissions to also admit folks, but
I do. I can let them in. I'm letting
all
them in
right,
as well. So feel
perfect.
free to
Thank
continue.
you.
I'll keep doing it. Thank
Awesome.
you.
Thank you so much. All right. So if you're just joining us, please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know who you are, who you're representing, and we will get into our presentation. Oh, yes. Okay. Let's see. You should be just seeing the welcome screen now. I'm on the next slide, so hopefully that's advancing for you. All right. Great. Thank you. So this new pilot program, you may have heard a little bit about it or read about it in the emails we've been sending. Essentially, we have 2 years of funding to pilot a program that is designed to have wraparound support, so both funding and tailored support to support a cohort of arts organizations, arts and culture organizations in Seattle as they transform in the face of changing economic conditions. There are challenges and also opportunities that they have to really sort of adapt and transform their business models to be more sustainable over time. And so this is really meant to be a proof of concept. It is, because it's a pilot, it will be somewhat experimental and iterative as we go along. And like I said, this is intended to be tailored to the needs of the organizations in the cohort. So there will be a nuanced approach for every organization. There will be opportunities to find shared challenges or shared opportunities. So sort of a mix of these different types of support. And really, in the end, we want this program to be a boon for the sector as a whole. So we're really looking at ways to innovate and invest in new ways in our sector. And so this is our pilot. All right. So this is sort of our why behind this program. As I mentioned, we want to support organizations in becoming more sustainable, having a greater impact, to build a critical mass across the arts and culture ecosystem in Seattle, and also to learn together as we grow and change. So we brought in a team of consultants, as I mentioned, and we went through a competitive process to find the team that had the right set of skills, perspectives, backgrounds, and who understood what we were trying to do. And so Road Openers is the consultant team that we selected. They've got deep partnerships across the country. They've done work like this before, and you'll see a couple of their primary partners are Eric Oberstein Productions and Lord Cultural Resources. So the first part of the work they've done is to take a look at what's going on in Seattle and what's going on across the country when it comes to funding, support in terms of working with organizations as they adjust and adapt their business models. And so throughout the summer, Road Openers has talked to a number of local arts organizations here in Seattle and conducted research in terms of the funding landscape here locally as well as nationally. And so I'm excited to introduce Priya Sarkar and Stacy Breakall with the Road Openers team to take it away.
Thanks, Alex. Now I'm trying to figure out how I cannot hear my own voice coming out of two places. Maybe that was coming out of someone else's device. It's great to be with you all. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to spend time together and to learn more about the Pivot program. Our Road Openers team is just delighted to be working with Alex and the Office of Arts and Culture to support arts and culture in Seattle for the next few years through this exciting opportunity to do something a little differently than maybe is typically done to support organizations and to help them transform. And the key for us with Road Openers is that we are working to revolutionize how artists' creativity and social impact are supported by connecting expertise and relationship networks to connect people to collaborators and resources and creative energy, and providing wraparound support to organizations and individual creatives and help them navigate their journey. So this is really about helping organizations to navigate a journey of transformation. And so thank you, Alex and team, for inviting us on the journey with you all. So we're just going to use the first half of our time together today to share with you information about the Pivot program and how we got to the design. As Alex mentioned, we did research for the past few months that has informed the initial design, and we're excited that the rest of the design is going to be developed with input from the participating organizations, and so that it can be tailored to their needs and opportunities. And I just want to acknowledge my teammate Stacy Breakall, who is also on the call today, and then various other teammates have been involved and will be involved moving forward. So briefly, here is, we want to share with you kind of a twofold hypothesis that is kind of guiding our work together with the Office of Arts and Culture. So the idea is that this program, this opportunity we have is going to result in benefits on the organizational level as well as on an ecosystem level. So on an organizational level, we think that with organizations who kind of are ready and primed to go on a transformation journey, not everyone is necessarily in that place or in that moment in their journey, but for organizations who might, out of need or necessity or opportunity, be kind of ready to go through a big change and have the self-awareness of what kind of is happening within their organization as well as externally, as well as to have a curiosity and an air of openness to trying some things differently. And if those organizations receive tailored support to their needs and opportunities or particular situations. And that can come in the form of coaching. It could be through navigation, as I mentioned earlier. Navigation, kind of think of like from public health, a navigator can help someone navigate their health journey, health and wellness. We're thinking of the same thing in terms of arts and culture. And then also, as I mentioned, wellness, we're really thinking about approaching an organization holistically, thinking about what they need to be well to be able to go through a process like this and sustain their work. What are the human beings who make up an organization need to be healthy and well and do this important work that can often be so very hard? So that kind of support, also paired with shared experiences, going through things as a cohort, receiving certain types of training if it's needed and if it will be helpful, Also convenings where people can just spend time in community and share knowledge and go through learning experiences together, and also peer mentorship. So it's not just about bringing in experts from here or there who are imparting knowledge, but really recognizing that everyone has wisdom to share amongst the community. And so drawing on peer mentorship and those shared experiences is, we think, a really great thing to be able to, for everyone to benefit from. So then, of course, another piece that's important is funding. So we anticipate that some combination of unrestricted and restricted funding is really useful for supporting an organization through a transformation. If you have all these ingredients that we're able to combine and go through a process together, that would result in organizations being able to innovate and adapt to changing circumstances, being more vital in our way of staying healthy, and also to be able to transform in a way that is going to lead to sustainability. Next slide, please.
Yeah, Priya, I wonder if you can share some examples of what types of transformation we're thinking about.
Sure, thanks. So this transformation could look like a lot of things, and I want to stress that that doesn't necessarily mean growth. It depends on the organization and what is the scenario that they're in, and what are kind of the circumstances, whom are they trying to serve, and what's the mission. For example, one scenario is I'm going to draw from is an organization that we heard from in October when we had a workshop to launch this program, and some of you may have been in attendance there. And we heard from Tacoma Arts Live, and they had a situation where they were prompted to go through a big transformation, because whereas they had been operating multiple venues, performing arts venues for the city of Tacoma, the city decided they wanted to do things differently and not go with that model anymore. And so Tacoma Arts Live actually no longer was going to be operating those. Instead, they actually became the owner of their own building, which was a different building. They moved to a different part of town that had very different demographics. And so and then they went from being a presenting organization, venue operator, to organization very focused on educational programs and other kinds of programming and offerings. So they had a massive shift in terms of what their primary business was, whom they were serving, especially in their immediate vicinity, and their business model. So that is a type of transformation that involved changing facilities and kind of what kind of work they did. But there could be other kinds of transformations where maybe an organization is thinking about scaling back and really drilling down to a certain core purposes. And maybe not doing as much. So that is another thing to think about. Alex, are there any other examples of types of transformation that you would add?
Sure. Yeah, I thank you for that. I know that we've seen some mergers happen in our city among our arts and cultural organizations here. So maybe exploring a merger, or maybe you're in the middle of a merger and you need support through that. Perhaps you are wanting to do some different types of programming, or you want to change your leadership model. You are exploring purchasing a building or operating, sharing a building, sort of these major shifts in the way that you conduct business. You could be exploring different ways of engaging your audience. So these are the kind of shifts that we're talking about, the transformations that we're considering. And of course, there are many others that we haven't mentioned. So hope that helps kind of ground our discussion a little bit.
Thanks,
We'll go over to
Alex.
the next one. Thank you.
Yeah. So just briefly, what do we think the impact could be on an ecosystem level? So our thought, based on research as well as based on the shared combined experience of the Office of Arts and Culture team and the Road Openers team and organizations we've supported and worked with in the past, is that if there are organizations who are sustainable or they're on a path to sustainability and that are healthy organizations and they're adaptive, and the more that we have of those who are also in community and have relationships with each other, the stronger the relationships and the more of those organizations that accumulate over time, there'll be a greater critical mass in the Seattle arts and culture ecosystem. And then that if you additionally continue to have funding and provide funding to support all of this work, because we recognize that is important to continue to fuel this kind of sustainability and health and vitality, then ecosystem-wide, we would see good health, broader and deeper, stronger impact. And then hopefully that collectively we would be able to operate in an environment of abundance rather than scarcity. Next slide. So I'm not going to read all the words on this slide. We do have some wordy slides, but that is because this is also going to be available for folks, for you all and others who are not in attendance to refer to later and come back to if you wish. But you can see here on this slide that the program purpose is what Alex shared previously, fostering transformation for sustainability, and then also that we hope to pilot and refine this approach so it can continue to be applied and serve more organizations moving forward. And then just as I have mentioned on the previous couple of slides, that we hope and expect that there will be ways that individual cohort participant organizations benefit through transforming business practices, as Alex has mentioned, through developing adaptive practices and skills that allow organizations to be resilient as things change. And also, we feel like it's really important for organizations to feel supported and cared for through this process. So that's one reason why it is designed as a cohort that will be a relatively intimate sized group so that one-on-one kind of care and support can happen as well as in a group setting. And then also that those relationships will continue to develop or new relationships will be formed. And again, that the ecosystem will benefit as well through all of this work as a result. And we hope that we can demonstrate the importance of this type of support, wraparound support, ongoing sustained multi-year support to potential partners and funders in the future. Next slide. Thank you. So what will the cohort look like? We anticipate that there will be a couple of types of organizations as part of it. It's all one cohort and it's one application process. But we think that the bulk of the organizations who would be part of the cohort will likely be responding to really timely challenges or needs, and that might be what's prompting a transformation, and that these organizations may not have gone through something similar before, or at least not in the recent past, and therefore might need some more support as they're going through the 2-year cohort program. And then that a smaller subset of the organizations will be ones that may have gone through a major transformation or shift in the last, say, 5 to 7 years, so that this is something where they kind of know how to manage a little bit, some type of transformation. There's some lessons learned in the recent past of their history that they can kind of draw from. Doesn't mean they don't need support. We just think they may not need as much support, and their transformation may be prompted more from a place of opportunity, maybe not necessarily an kind of a urgent challenge that is happening. And it doesn't mean that you might not be squarely in either of these categories, but this is just kind of a way that we're thinking about being able to have a range of types of organizations participate. And also, we talked about the peer mentorship being something we think can be really beneficial. And so the mentor organizations would be able to, share their lessons learned with the peers, with the other organizations, that hopefully will be helpful as everyone's navigating their transformation together. Next slide. So what do we think the participating organizations will be doing, and how long do we think that will take? So first caveat is just that reminder that because a fair amount of the specifics of the cohort experience are yet to be designed, because we will be tailoring them for the organizations who are selected and what would benefit them as we have conversations with them as well. We are doing our best estimate here, but what we envision is that there will be about maybe a range of 56 to 76 hours of participation per year for 2 years. It might be a little bit more than that if multiple folks from an organization are participating in certain ways, but not everyone who's the core team from an organization will be expected to be at everything all the time. So the program will go on for 2 years, from spring of 2026 to spring of 2028. We are envisioning there would likely be 2 in-person gatherings per year, so 4 total. And those could be 1 to 2 days in Seattle, and 1 to 2 days each, excuse me. And then also there would be periodic virtual gatherings, another way for folks to get together and continue to support each other, and for us to support the participants. We think those could be quarterly. And then regular individual communication and advising from the Road Openers team and the Office of Arts and Culture team combined. And that would just be kind of on an individual basis, depending on what is needed and what would be helpful. We do want this to be a collaborative process that we go through together, and we're learning together and iterating together. So there will be ongoing dialogue where there'll be a feedback loop, and we'll be able to kind of adjust and refine the pilot program, especially as we think about how to implement it future iterations of Pivot. We would expect that the organizations would acknowledge the support. That's some standard kind of standard requirement through Office of Arts and Culture that Alex would be better able to speak to if you have questions about that during the Q&A. But I think you all probably have previously had support through the Office of Arts and Culture, and so this is probably a requirement you're familiar with from the past. Also, the public benefit requirement is also something that you're likely familiar with from past involvement and support from OAC. Similarly, the Seattle Business License and Washington State UBI, and then the reporting requirements. So we anticipate there will be reporting at the end, and also kind of an annual check-in and reporting as we go through each year of the program. I also want to mention something we're really excited about for this program is that we will be working with a developmental evaluator who's going to go on this journey with us and is going to help us to continue to assess how the pivot program is working, how is it serving each of the cohort members' needs and goals, and to help us assess to help us refine it as we go as well, and also to help us do a final evaluation. Next slide. Okay, eligibility. So there are 4 eligibility requirements, and you do need to meet all 4 of these. So we really encourage you to think about these and reflect on whether your organization meets all 4. One is that you're a current or past grantee of the Office of Arts and Culture within the past 7 years. Another one is that you are located and your primary reach of your programs and services is within the Seattle city limits. Also, that your organization has been in operation for at least 7 years. One caveat with that is that, as Alex noted, we're aware that there are mergers happening or that have happened recently. And so if that's the case, as long as one of the organizations that has been part of a merger has been in operation for that long, then that is sufficient for this criterion. And then finally, that your organization has identified and can articulate the challenge or the opportunity that is what's prompting you to undergo a transformation. And you will be able to articulate that in the letter of intent application, which is now open. And then also that you can really commit to doing this work of transformation over the next couple of years. Also want to just acknowledge that transformation often takes much longer than a couple of years. We know that, but we feel that, we're glad to at least have these 2 years of funding and the ability to support organizations to, during part of their transformation journey. Next slide, please. Thank you. So in addition to the eligibility criteria, there are some more questions that we suggest that you reflect on as you're considering whether the pivot program is a good fit for your organization and whether you would like to apply. So some of those are thinking about the core team from your organization who would be most involved with making this transformation happen, who would be key. It does, I mean, in a major organizational transformation, probably everyone involved plays some role, but if there are certain key folks, whether it's staff or board members, or if you don't have a board, other folks involved who are volunteer, who would be those people who would be most critical to the transformation taking place? And would they be able to participate from spring of 2026 through spring of 2028? And this is where you might think about, the earlier slide where we're estimating how long might be required and what those activities are anticipated to be. We're also, again, going back to that question of, have you identified what the challenge or opportunity is that is requiring your organization to explore a transformation or undergo a transformation? And again, can you demonstrate through the letter of intent that you're really, ready and able to commit to doing the work that that it would require, especially because, we definitely recognize that transforming is not business as usual. And oftentimes an organization is working on delivering on its mission still, every day, doing its current programming and things, while it's also reflecting on and doing the work to transform. And that's why there's also funding that goes with the wraparound support. Next slide. So what are the evaluation criteria? So these are the areas of evaluation for the letter of intent, which is open now through 5 p.m. on December 10th. So you can see here that they're weighted a little differently, but the key areas are clarity and readiness. So again, being clear on what the transformation is that it's required and why, kind of what's the impetus for it. And there might be more than one impetus for it. And the readiness to go on this kind of journey now. Again, it doesn't mean that there might not be a transformation that might be needed sometime in the organization's future, but is right now a time that the organization is kind of ready to go through this process. Mission and service, again, just wanting to understand clarity of mission and clarity of who are your constituents, whom that you serve, and sort of what is the value that they find in your organization. And then also understanding and foresight. So thinking about what might be some barriers that you anticipate your organization might encounter along the way during the time period of this program, as well as during the transformation, depending on what type of transformation you anticipate you'll need to do. And then also capacity to participate, as we talked about before, just thinking about your team, who are the team members who are needed? Are they going to be able to participate fully and get the most out of this program? And then curiosity and openness. That's sort of the kind of mindset and organizational culture piece that we mentioned earlier, which is just knowing that a transformation typically means changing up how we're doing things. And so that is necessarily requires an openness to trying some things differently and testing and experimenting. And we will be on this journey of experimentation and testing with you. Also just want to note that the review panels for the letter of intent will contain a mix of Office of Arts and Culture staff, the Road Openers consultant team, as well as some other folks who are from the local community and subject matter experts. And those reviewers who are not Office of Arts and Culture staff or Road Openers consultant team will be paid. And also that all the panelists will participate in implicit bias training. Next slide, please. Okay, selection considerations. I won't read all of these to you, but hopefully you can just kind of take these in, and I'll just stress that as we are going through the selection process, we will really be thinking holistically about the cohort, because these will be organizations that are going to spend 2 years together going through a lot of shared experiences, learning from each other, supporting each other as well. And we want to think about that mix and also endeavor to have a good mix and range of different elements represented in the cohort. And that includes things like artistic discipline, community served, geography, etc., existing or potential relationships among the organizations, how they'll work together, and maybe what that broader ecosystem impact might be if they go through this pivot program together. So the longer list is on this slide, but just want to kind of share that it's not really just about selecting individual organizations, but also really thinking about the cohort as a whole. Next slide. And the timeline. So again, just really want to stress the letter of intent application deadline of 5 p.m. Pacific time on December 10th. In January, the review panels will be convening after they have reviewed and scored the letters of intent. So then based on their recommendations, we'll be inviting finalist organizations to interview. So the interviews will be a way that we can kind of dive deeper into the information shared in the letters of intent and ask some follow-up questions. And then our goal is to interview finalists in that late January or early February timeframe, and hopefully if kind of arrived at the cohort by mid-February, and notify everyone of decisions. And then the Office of Arts and Culture would contract with the organizations who are participating, and then we'd really get started in earnest with the pivot program cohort activities in spring, in the second quarter of 2026. And then that work would run through spring and summer of 2028. Next slide. Okay, turning it back over to Alex. Thank you, Alex. And Alex is going to kind of quickly take us on a tour of the LOI.
Indeed. If I move this window, and are you seeing the submittable window now?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Hopefully other folks will let us know if that's not happening.
Okay, I see some thumbs up. All right, sweet. Thank you. And I can zoom in a little bit. Okay, take up more of this screen. All right, so for those of you who, for those of you who have not used Submittable to apply for a grant through our office or submit something through Submittable, you'll want to create an account. Something to note is that this application is not publicly visible, and so you'll need to use the link that you've received, which I also put in the chat, to access this opportunity. So you have a bit of a program overview to just kind of remind yourself of what the contours of this program look like. Here's the self-assessment checklist, if you want to refer back to that. And then you've got some links here, which I also dropped in the chat. So one thing to note is this letter of interest worksheet is a Word document that you can use to draft your responses to the questions and prompts in the form. It doesn't keep track of your word count, so that's just one thing to keep in mind. So when you're ready to open the form, click apply. And of course, I'm gonna have to re-log in. Bear with me here. Okay. So funny thing about Submittable is this text up here is going to stay up there throughout the course of you filling out the form. So just, if you're not seeing what you think you should see, scroll down. This form gives you the option to invite other people to collaborate with you in the forum itself. So you can do that here with the Manage Collaborators link. Then you've got some information about using Submittable, optimizing how you use Submittable, types of browsers that are best, that sort of thing. All right, so the first question we ask is, what's the name of your organization? My name is Test Organization. The eligibility requirements, again, this is reminding you of these 4 criteria. And you can respond yes. If you respond no, you'll be, you kind of reach the end of the form and you're encouraged to reach out to our sort of program email. But assuming that you meet the eligibility criteria, you'll give us the contact information for the person who could best speak to any questions that we might have about this LOI form. If you use a fiscal sponsor, let us know what organization that is. And then what's your primary artistic discipline? If you don't see one here that resonates with you or your organization, you can select other and let us know what exactly you do. If you select multidisciplinary, you'll also get the chance to kind of tell us more about that. All right, then we get into finances. We ask about your most recently completed fiscal year, so give us a date range for that. Then let us know what the operating income and operating expenses were for that year. If you show a deficit, that will not negatively affect your LOI. We just want to know, like, what's the status, what's the What's the reality you're facing? All right, so past transformations. This question is the opportunity for you to tell us about ways that your organization has evolved over time, um, how your recent transformation went, what the outcome was. And if that's not applicable to you, just say not applicable or none, or however you want to answer that. Um, and I should note this question is to also give us a sense of what organizations might be a good fit for a mentor role. Then we ask about sort of the context that you're working within. What's the opportunity or challenge you're facing that is really driving the need to transform? Then we ask, what's your transformation goal? What are you trying to do? Why and why now? The next question is about any potential barriers that you can predict or anticipate. So tell us about those. Desired outcomes is for you to envision that you're taking part in the pivot cohort. What would you have accomplished by the end of the 2-year timeline? What types of support you have benefited from? And what's the impact going to be on your organization? Not only on your organization, but on your constituents, your audiences, the organizations that you're networked with. What is the kind of broader impact? Then we ask about your organizational structure. We'd like to know um, things such as the ones that are listed here. So are you a volunteer-run organization? If you have staff, how many staff do you have? If you have a board, are they an advisory body, or do they have a fundraising function? So just kind of help us to fully understand how your organization works. And then we get into the core team members section. So as Priya mentioned, we have some estimates around what the commitment to the cohort would look like. And not every person who would be representing your organization may be appropriate for every single activity that the cohort does, but this is just kind of our best guess. So it's expected that an organization's leadership, such as staff, board members, key volunteers, will be participating. So who would those people be for your organization? We'd like to know their names, their roles, how long they've been involved. So you kind of have you can follow this example if you'd like to just kind of have a simple bullet list to let us know about those folks. Oh, something to note here is if you anticipate any shifts in their ability to commit to the full 2 years, let us know what those disruptions might be and how you might address them. So for example, there in this example, there's well, that's not maybe the example I wanted to give. So another example, your board has 1-year terms, and you can anticipate that the same board chair would be re-elected. So just kind of, explain the scenario. The last part of the LOI form is this organizational demographic questions section. This will also likely be very familiar to you. This information is what we gather through virtually all of our grant opportunities. And the difference here is that these responses will help us to understand the mix of organizations as we're as we're forming the cohort. I've heard Priya talk about it like casting a play or casting a movie. So, we want to understand um, all the dimensions of diversity that will help us to round out the cohort. So this is all pretty familiar, I believe. If you have any questions about this, we can talk about that separately. You can save a draft, and it'd be great to just save often, save um, as you're going. And then when you feel good about your LOI being complete, you can hit apply. Stop there. Any questions about the LOI? Forgot to share this screen. Erin, I see your question. We will respond to your email. What other questions do folks have?
Alex, would you like folks to like raise their hands or drop them in the chat or both?
Yeah, whatever feels good to you. Or if anyone wants me to go back to any particular slides, let me know. I see a question. How will you evaluate curiosity and openness?
Yeah, Alex, you want me to kind of answer first and you can add if you want to? Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, thank you for the question. This really is something that will come through in how the questions are answered. I think in how the application discusses um, what the challenge or opportunity is and um, what the interest is in the pivot program, what the organization seeks to achieve by the end of the 2 years. These are the kinds of questions in which we expect that the answers, how they're answered, will reveal kind of the mindset of the organization and the degree to which the organization is kind of open to doing things in a different way than might be needed, or how they identify the challenge or opportunity. The way that that is articulated is going to be revealing in terms of the kind of the I would say the organizational culture around openness and curiosity. See another question, Alex, in the chat that says, do you need to be a nonprofit or are we required to have a fiscal sponsor? You do not need to be a nonprofit. If you're not a nonprofit, there you do need to have a fiscal sponsor, I believe. Is that correct, Alex?
Well, if you're, an LLC or some other type of organization, that's okay too.
Great, thank you.
Okay. What else do we have here? How exactly do we demonstrate or show our commitment to the work of transformation over the 2 years? Will past internal work, such as recent operations audit, be considered as evidence?
So, I mean, I have some thoughts, Alex, but I don't know if you want to answer as well. One is that it really, and I don't know if maybe looking back at the application will be helpful here that you just took us through, Alex, but the questions around who the team is and whether, they'll be able to kind of commit to participating through the 2 years. I think part of that is that's going to be an important indicator, because if the organization's leadership is not involved, then I think the organization is less likely to, or excuse me, the transformation is less likely to be successful and less likely to stick. The things that we're supporting and that will need to happen are less likely to kind of take hold. So some of it has to do with who is the team that would be essential to the transformation, who are also like ready, able, and willing to go through the 2 year cohort together. And then I think while we won't be accessing or pulling in information from, other maybe past work with the Office of Arts and Culture, if there's anything that you would want to reference or point to in the LOI answers that would speak to commitment or demonstrate commitment to doing this work. Maybe there are some things that you're already doing and have already begun to do that relate to your organizational transformation. Those would be great things to mention as well. So I think anything that you feel speaks to demonstrating that you can reference in the letter of intent would be really, really great to include and really helpful for the review panels. Alex, is there anything you would add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's good. In terms of the recent operations audit, that I think will demonstrate that you've gotten the ball rolling a bit. So that could definitely support, how you demonstrate your commitment. Okay, I see some questions about the cohort. Talk more about how to plan to consider the cohort as a whole when reviewing applications, or what is the ideal balance of organizations you're looking for in the cohort. And so I can go back to that slide, if that helps. Oh, let's see. Where did that go? Hang on a second. Can you speak to
I think
that,
it's right after that.
Priya?
Sure. And
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that's
totally.
like, it might be right after the
Right after
evaluation
that. Yep.
criteria. Sure. Yeah, I can speak to that. I would say that there's not an ideal balance, except for it to be balanced. I think that we would hope to have a mix of organizations based on the different parameters that are on this slide. We don't we It would be amazing and probably also unlikely for us to be able to hit a perfect mix of every single parameter on here, every single dimension that you see on this slide, but we would be trying to do that. It really also depends on the applications that come in, who reflects on the not only the eligibility criteria, but also those kind of the self-assessment questions, and feels like, yes, we need to go through a transformation. We're ready to go through it. We feel like we can participate in this program right now, and so we want to, apply. And so it does depend to some degree on the applications that come in and the nature of the different types of transformations and where the organizations are. But we do hope to have a mix of artistic disciplines and geographies and types of organizations, different sizes of organizations, and a variety of communities served, all of those things within the cohort. Alex, is there anything you would add to that?
That sounds good. I know we've got some, I'm answering some of the questions in the chat that seem pretty straightforward. Let's see. One question is, we've really been pivoting organizationally with our programming since 2020, but are also facing displacement. What are the benefits to turning focus to the immediate or including both in our LOI? Similar question was, we're facing an important pivot point and could go in one of two directions or both simultaneously. Should we focus only on the one that is most likely in our LOI? So I think like how do organizations choose what to present?
That is a
If
great question, and I actually think it's part of the self-assessment. I
mm,
think that that is a key reason why we are asking for organizations to who decide to apply to really be clear on what are the things that are prompting the transformation, and then what is the nature of the transformation that we want to do, and that we feel going through this program would help us to do. Um, so I I'll answer it. So to the second question, which was about there are two transformations and should we do the one that's most likely? I think probably, unless most likely means it depends on why it's the most likely. Is it that it is the one that you're kind of maybe already kind of on your way to doing? Is it the one that is easier? Is it the one that is more urgent? So it kind of depends on why that one is most likely, but if there's sort of like really good reasons why it's the one that's most likely, and and your organization is like, yep, this is the one we need to do and focus on right now, then that might be the right one to apply with to go through the pivot program. Um, or if you're evaluating a fork in the road and there's sort of like two ways that you could transform and you're not sure which one to do, I think that is a harder question. That one might be something to reach out to us to talk through together. Um, it might be that if the organization, if as an organization you're not it's not clear which transformation is the best one, like it's sort of the right option, and it's an either or situation, then now might not be the right time for your organization to go through the pivot program, because that readiness piece is really important. Because yeah, we feel like the organizations who are going to be able to kind of benefit the most by going through this program are ones that are kind of on the cusp of going through a transformation and are clear on what that needs to be and why, or that they might already be kind of in the early stages of a transformation, and this could really help them move through it. So hopefully that answers that question. Alex, I wonder if you could remind me, or just answer, feel free to answer yourself, the first question along those lines that you had posed. I think it was earlier in the chat, perhaps, but it was related.
yeah, I uh I think we um I think we got that. We're a little over time. I appreciate you all staying around. I think there's a couple more questions that if we could get to those, that might help close us out. So, how is the scale of support or funds decided and then distributed to each organization? Will that be decided based on transformation goals for each organization? Do organizations need to ask for a specific amount?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Thank you. So it will depend on the nature of the transformation that the organization is seeking to do, and also somewhat on the size of the organization, like your operating budget. But I want to make clear we're not thinking of this as like a percentage of your operating budget. It's just as more a matter of what kind of how big is your organization, but it very much depends on what is the nature of the transformation that you're seeking to go through. Some types of transformation will necessarily cost more to enable at least the 2 years of the program that you would be in, and then others just might not be as costly a transformation. So we plan to tailor it to the organization based on on each kind of individual scenario within the bounds of the resources that the Office of Broad Student Culture has to put toward this. And Alex, please correct me if I misstate this, but the schedule for disbursement is anticipated that it will be year one at the beginning of the first year of the cohort, and then year two would be distributed at the end. I think that is also subject to change potentially, just depending on how the grant awards are structured, because as I touched on previously, we anticipate there would be probably the grant awards will include an unrestricted portion and a restricted portion. So an unrestricted portion to just help provide that stability and flexibility that is needed as you go through something like this, but also probably a restricted portion that is more geared toward the particular transformation activities that you want to implement during the course of the pivot program.
Yeah, and there's a question about, do you have examples of what would not be considered for funding? I need to think about that a little bit more. But yeah, I think Priya might have some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think that could be a long list because
Yeah.
it could include, I don't say that to be flip. I mean, I think, there could be things that are um like a slightly different version of an existing program. That's not a transformation. That's like maybe just an evolution of an existing offering that might not be something major. I think, possibly if, let's say, um, there's something operational where it's like um, upgrading a facility or maintenance needs or things like that that are kind of a little bit more like day-to-day operations or that kind of thing, that wouldn't we wouldn't view that as a transformation. I mean, we're not saying it's not important, but it's not really organizational transformation. When we're talking about organizational transformation, just kind of harking back to Alex, what you were saying earlier is like really thinking about something that would involve a major shift in how your organization is doing business or how you're serving your constituents. Maybe it's even a reimagining of how you serve your constituents based on what they need, or if you're thinking about fine tuning, you feel like you're fine tuning your mission, and that might result in a different expression of your programs and your staffing and all of these things, your structure. Maybe you're thinking about whether you need to move to a different part of town. I mean, so that that could also be something that is going to require a transformation. So I think it's a little. Those are just a few examples of what would not be considered a transformation and then what could be considered a transformation. But as Alex said, it's a little bit difficult to enumerate, kind of an exhaustive list in either category, because we also don't want to be prescriptive. We really are wanting to understand what you all are experiencing and thinking about, and the ways that you're considering how to how to meet the challenges and opportunities before you. And so that's a key piece of why the letter of intent questions are structured the way they are, so that we're trying to come into this with an air of openness as well, openness and curiosity and flexibility. And it's kind of like, okay, we want to understand and learn what you all are thinking about and exploring and dealing with, and how you're thinking about approaching those. And from that, we will be able to get a feel for the ways, the projects that may be the best fit for this type of support we can provide through the Pivot program. Does that sound right to you,
Yeah.
Alex? Or is there anything you would
Yeah, and we got
add to that?
affirmation that is helpful. So yes, thank you all for the additional time. Thank you to Priya for presenting this solid information. Lots of appreciation in the chat. We're excited to see what is on your minds, and please do use the pivotinfo@roadopeners.com email to share any additional questions or thoughts that you have. We will be posting a recording of this. You'll also get a copy of the slides. And again, please check out the links, the LOI worksheet, the guidelines, the FAQ. Those will all be really helpful for you moving forward.
Thank you, Alex, and thank you to all of you for your interest and your time and your questions. And also just want to reiterate that we will periodically update the FAQ. So we'll add questions that came up today and the answers to those.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day.
week.